Welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Fix. I'm Jacob,
And I'm Zane.
and we are back with another episode. We have a lot to talk about. I think this episode probably can be pre-titled Marvel Madness because we have had some insane things happening in Marvel this past week with the Loki Season 2 finale finally coming to a close. We saw the brand new Marvels movie come out. Lots to talk about. Zane, how did you feel about this past week?
It was a really, really fun week. A lot of positive energy coming off of last week with Loki and all the theories flying, and then the I was very much looking forward to Thursday all week. It was a busy week as the start of basketball season kind of started going through for my personal life, but also then we had the Marvels, Loki, but we did have Friday off for those of us who got to celebrate Veterans Day on Friday. So a really, really good week, and I enjoyed. Just spoiler alert, I enjoyed both Marvel projects that came out.
I did too, absolutely. And like he said, little spoiler, this will be a very heavy spoiler podcast. So if you guys have not had a chance to see the Marvels or to finish up Loki, there will be some timestamps down in the description so you guys can jump ahead to wherever you'd like to pick up. However, I think we start off with the Marvels because Loki's been getting the spotlight on the podcast basically since we started, and I'm really, really excited to talk about Loki. However, the Marvels was the big project that just got dropped. What did you think of the movie? What would you grade it? Maybe not grade it yet. Maybe we'll get to that here in a second. But what did you think of the movie?
So just overall, I just had a blast. And it was just a really, really fun movie. I There is so much negativity going around this movie that it was really hard to get excited for it. And if you've heard any of our previous podcasts, I was looking forward to it. I did think it was going to be great. But there's just so many voices out there, so many people saying that this had bad test screenings, that they reshot the whole film and that they had to rewrite it. And then with that Variety article that has been completely debunked as complete and total fodder, cannon fodder, it is it had the bad press junket, and then with the writer strike, no one, or the actor strike, no one was able to promote the film, so it just got all this bad negativity around it. But man, going into that theater, I was pumped. I was excited to be back at the theaters watching another Marvel film. Dragging my wife there. She actually quit watching some of the shows that led up to this. That would be Miss Marvel. So she has a disdain for it. So she's picked on me that she's gonna hate it. She's gonna hate it. But man, it was a really, really good time. I thought it was just exactly what Marvel films at their core are, which is just a really good time. Now, Marvel has underlying themes, and they have some of the best movies just for character building and everything else. And I understand that this may not be everyone's favorite, most in-depth character study of a film, but man, it was really good.
I have to agree. I think what you said probably summarized it the best. It was just it was a blast of a movie. I enjoyed a lot of the fun things about it. I really actually liked the characters. I know a lot of people don't like the Miss Marvel character. I actually really thought she was a great comedic relief throughout the whole movie. Kind of gave a different perspective on some things. Loved Captain Marvel. I thought she did a really great job. I loved Monica Rambeau's character as well. I really liked all three of them. I thought they did a really good job. One of the things I think I liked the most about it was I thought the action scenes were fantastic. I
Yeah.
loved them kind of learning how to shift together, how to whenever I use my power, we're going to switch. So we need to make sure that we're doing the exact same stuff and we're focused on the same thing. I wish they would have even elaborated on that even more because I thought that was a really cool idea that they went with. Like I said, the action scenes were fun. I thought it was just a fun movie. I loved some of the things that they did. One of my favorite parts of the movie, which I'm sure we'll get to, I loved the cats, the Flurkins. I think that
Oh,
was just an absolute great thing. I think that was such a Nick Fury way to find himself out of a situation. Loved that aspect of it. But yeah, I think it was a really good movie. Definitely did not disappoint me. And I know what you've been talking about, a lot of people hating on Marvel and a lot of people saying, oh, this is not a big movie. And the box office is actually kind of showing that. I think they said it's the lowest box office we've ever seen from a Marvel movie. I think that is so wrong. I think if you haven't gone and seen this movie, I would highly recommend it. I think it was a really good time. There are a few things that I think it fell short of, but we'll get to those in a second. However, I thought it was a really, really great movie. Starting off with those things that I think fell short of for me personally, and I think I've seen a lot of people comment on this. I did feel like the villain was a little bit lackluster. Now, I don't know if you felt the same way, but I'd like to hear what you thought of the villain for this movie.
So, I don't, I try not to listen to anything before we get to talk about it, just so like I said, like in times past, I want the thoughts to be original.
Mhm.
But I have heard that complaint, and I don't quite understand it from a villain perspective. Now, I think that from Thanos forward, we have gotten the absolute best villains we possibly could get from Marvel. I think that you know, they may have not been the best executed, but Namor, and then Gore the God Butcher, and we're seeing just time and time again we're seeing great villains. We saw all the Spider-Man villains in Spider-Verse in No Way Home, and then we got the High Evolutionary. So we have just been absolutely treated with villains that are amazing, and I don't think Dar-Benn was bad. She had a very good motivation, and I think the motivation being shown off screen and told later is why everyone thinks that she's lackluster. I
I'll say
think
for me
that's why.
personally, I think for me personally, the reason why I felt like it was so lackluster is when you have these type of heroes, right? You could make an argument that these are maybe three of the most powerful superheroes that we have. Captain Marvel obviously has been one of the most powerful superheroes that we've had since she was announced, since she had her first movie. Miss Marvel is kind of showing that she's going to be a very powerful thing. And then we have Monica Rambeau, who's also shown that she's very powerful as well. That's where it fell short for me. I felt
Okay.
like these characters, and they did execute this. I think they didn't really struggle with her when they actually did fight her. Is a fairly quick fight. Maybe they showed her a little bit too much trust when she, jumped up and she got the other bangle and stuff like that. So be it. I do feel like they did show that she's not on their level. I think they did show that part well. But when you do have these characters like that, I feel like you do need a villain that is at that level just because of who they are.
Okay,
I
so
will
you
agree with
felt
you.
like she wasn't a threat.
Yes, I did not ever, not a single time was I like, ooh, this she has a point, or maybe she is pretty strong. I didn't feel like that ever, not a single time. I will agree with you saying that we've been very, very, gifted some amazing villains. I mean, the High Evolutionary is probably one of the best villains, period, Marvel has ever given us. Just the way that role was portrayed, how much you actually did hate this dude by the end of the movie. And that's what you want in a villain. Now, there's different villains like Thanos where some people don't hate him. I was one of those people. I liked Thanos. I understood what his theory was, and when you can actually have a villain that makes you think what they're doing is actually good, that's a good villain as well. So I think you need to show both. But this one, I feel like it just didn't show anything. I felt like she was there. She did have some, complaint. She was mad at some things that had happened to her personally with her home world. And Captain Marvel even shows that she thought she was helping, right? So those are the things. I just never felt like she was a threat, but I also never believed in her cause. So I feel like if you don't have either one of those, I feel like the villain can fall short. And with these type of heroes, I feel like you do need a really powerful villain.
I feel like I can agree with a bunch of that. I do feel like she did have a good cause that you can get behind, like the main hero, heroine of the story literally destroyed her world,
Hmm.
and she's going through to her worlds to get those resources back. I think that is a pretty good, and she was shown effective twice, which also kind of gave some meat behind her threats and some weight to her character. Um, but I do understand the negative of it, saying that she wasn't as powerful. I was always kind of shocked. The Bangle kind of did even the playing field a little bit for her. And then the universal weapon as well, obviously granting some superhero-esque powers to her, just because of how strong that weapon is. But I can see the complaints more from just hearing you say it. But I do think that she wasn't near as bad as even some of our first and second phase villains that people seem to still praise those movies. significantly more than these movies for and that's kind of what I struggle with on these is like after rewatching through the entire MCU, this movie for me doesn't fall in the bottom, bottom five. It's a mid level movie, but that's still good for the quality of movies that we have in Marvel.
I agree, and I like I said, I loved the movie. Like I said, I think it was a really fun movie. It will be a movie that I think I'll watch again and actually enjoy. Because it was a great movie. I do like now. This is going to kind of sound like I'm being a little hypocritical with what I'm about to say. I
Okay.
like when movies are self-contained. I feel like this is a movie you can watch and without having watched anything else, I do think you could understand. For instance, my wife, she hadn't watched Miss Marvel. I actually haven't watched Miss Marvel. I've read through like the cliff notes of it, so I know what happens and stuff in that show. But she did not have a hard time understanding what was happening. And also, it was not a confusing movie, and it's not a movie I feel like you have to see to understand what's coming. I don't feel like there was any of that going on, really. Personally, I know you could say some stuff there at the end, which we'll get to. I did feel like overall, though, the story was very self-contained, and I think that is very good. And I'm very excited for Marvel doing things like that with these spotlight series that we've talked about, such as Echo and things like that. However,
Yeah.
with this movie coming out when it did, I felt like it needed to drive us forward in a big way, and I do feel like it fell very short of that. I don't feel like it drove us forward any more than what the Loki season 2 finale did. If anything, Loki drove us way farther than this movie did by a lot. So that is one of my things that I think just with the timing of this movie coming out when it did, there's no other big project slated for this year. I mean, this is really the only big project we're going to have until arguably next year with Deadpool. I do feel like this movie really needed to push us forward just with the timing of when it came out. If this would have came out when Ant-Man came out, I wouldn't be having this complaint right now because we still had other stuff coming out. With where this one came out and us being kind of on a long wait for things coming, especially with Loki being over, I do feel like it needed to drive us forward. I don't know if you have that same sentiment, but for me personally, I was really hoping to be like, all right, this is what's happening. This is where we're going. And I just don't feel like it did that.
So I see what you're saying with you want the self-contained storylines, but you still want it to drive forward, and that's the tightrope that Marvel, I think, is really trying to balance, which they need to either, like they're sitting on the fence and they need to get off or get on it. And
Yeah.
I think what they need to do is either it is crucial and it sends the main overarching story forward, or it doesn't at all. And I think that's kind of what they're having the problem with, is because this movie teased, oh, it is included in the bigger story, but it's
Yep.
not. It's
Yep.
not. Like nothing happened other than Monica Rambeau in the post-credit scene got sent to an alternate universe, and so like yeah, that's going to have ramifications. She's going to be able to bring all the X-Men up to speed with what's going on in our universe, and be able to know them and be able to introduce them, and they already know us because her knowledge is there. And I get that, but it's either drive the story forward completely, or don't do that and give us completely standalone films.
Yeah, and like I said, the whole push forward of this movie was that end credit scene, basically. I
Yeah.
mean, this movie was very self-contained up to that point, but if you're gonna do I think that's a huge end credit scene, by the way. I think that is like what we were expecting. Maybe the whole movie is stuff to that scale. I don't think we needed to see a bunch of cameos and stuff like that. I'm not saying that, but I do feel like that scene pushed the story forward in a way that I feel like the whole movie kind of should have done, or just not even attempted at all. So, like you were saying, that kind of on the fence, they need to get on or off. That's where I'm at with this movie. I loved the story overall. I think it was really fun. I liked the idea behind it. I do like that we were getting to see all these Marvel characters, like the Marvels, get together and really kind of, understand each other. I mean, we saw Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau meet for the first time since Monica was a kid. Miss Marvel finally getting to meet her hero personally of Captain Marvel. I loved all that stuff. I think that was really fun, really cool ideas there. But it just needed to drive something forward just with the timing of when it came out. I don't think you can come off a show like Loki that probably you could argue has pushed the MCU forward more than any other project ever has in terms of story, and then have this movie come out the day after, or really even the same night of, if you went to the
Same
early
night.
premiere, of the finale. So that was one of my bigger complaints.
Which
I don't
is
know if you
funny
had any.
because I actually think the Miss Marvel and Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, was actually a bigger like excitement point for me, significantly so, than the post credit scene.
Well,
Um,
and I did like that too, because that's kind of pushing a story forward, because we know we're getting that Young Avengers at some point,
yeah,
right?
and they're just like it's almost like the push. So a lot of people have problems with cameos because cameos are like just nuggets of good to get people excited, but generally they don't have story driven means for it. So it's like, oh, you can get people in the door for a good cameo because they just want to see it again. And that's kind of what I feel like we're getting with the overarching story in this is like, hey, here's a little bit of fun to tie into everything else for our movie that doesn't really have anything to do with it.
I feel the same way. I feel like, we talk about stuff getting rewritten and things like that. I feel like they threw this in last second, because when they sat back and looked at this movie, they realized it didn't push the story forward at all. And
Which would have
I
been
think
fine for me.
exactly I think they thought, though. I mean, it is my complaint. I do feel like, just because of when it came out, I feel like it had to push the story forward. But I'll almost rather it just not have at the point now, that after I've seen the movie and realized how little it did, than them just throw these in credit scenes in and be like, all right, here's your push forward. That's lazy on my part. In my opinion, that is just lazy. Either don't do it at all or do it. So I think where this movie came out, it needed to. But again, like I said, I'm being hypocritical by saying one thing and another. I just feel like the timing of this movie is really what hurt it in that regard, in my personal opinion.
Well, the timing overall, with just all of the actor strike going on, the Secret Invasion hurt this more than anything.
Yeah.
And Secret Invasion could have been, if Miss Marvel was in Secret Invasion, and we would have seen more of that, like this, like Secret Invasion being Nick Fury's lead up to this movie. I mean, he seems like a completely and totally different character in this film.
Yeah,
Like,
big time.
like
Like, this felt like
there's a
the real
big
Nick
character
Fury.
switch. Yeah,
Yeah.
he seemed great. He seemed competent. He seemed on his game. He seemed like cool, calm, and collected in every scene that he was in. He was always going to be able to figure it out, and it's just different. Secret Invasion hurt the Marvel Cinematic Universe probably more than anything else has, project wise.
And we've talked about it. I didn't after seeing everything else that's come out, I realized how bad Secret Invasion was. When I was watching it, I was captivated by the story they were trying to tell. But one of my things I was going to say that I praised about this movie was it seemed like we finally got Nick Fury back, because
Oh yeah.
he was good in this movie. And I would love to have a standalone movie of Nick Fury, because he's that cool of a character. But what we got was just detrimental to him as a character. And this, like you said, Secret Invasion did need to, in some way, if you're going to have Nick Fury in it, and he was a big part of this movie in a way. He might not have been one of the big three. But you could argue he was number 4 on that list of important characters. His previous show needed to tie in some way, and they didn't even mention a single thing about it. So that was one of the things
And there was
I loved Nick
scrolls.
Fury in this movie. But other than that, I was like,
And there's literally a planet with Skrulls living on it. Like Skrulls have found a home world,
yeah,
and Carol Danvers knows about it. But like I don't. Let's not. I'm not gonna go into negative
yeah,
land
right.
for Secret Invasion. This is the Marvels, and
Yep.
I wanted to ask you about your one of the cameos that we get, and since we're talking about mainly cameos bringing in certain aspects, what did you think about the Valkyrie cameo?
I thought it was okay. It didn't bother me any. I liked the idea of, maybe New Asgard being a place for everyone to come to if you need a home. That makes sense to me, because they lost their home. They could be on that, fence of, we do need to help more people, that's because there's more people out there like us. We're not the only people that have lost our home. So I do like
Yeah.
that aspect of it. I don't have a preference on that. I could have done with it or without it. It didn't hurt the film at all, in my opinion. Um, but it was interesting to see that these characters know each other the way that they do, things like that. Um, so it didn't bother me personally. It didn't, like I said, didn't help or hurt in any way for me.
I really like Tessa Thompson. I think she's really, really good in that role. I think she is always cool, calm, and collected, and really just always competent. It's really nice to see competent characters on screen
Yeah, yeah,
when they're in their roles and not struggling. And that's one of I guess that's one of the only good things about that. It just seemed like another needless cameo, especially when it was given away in the trailer, which I thought was weird that they
yeah.
did that. But I really did like the chemistry between them. I thought it was a good moment on screen to see that Carol isn't completely alone in this universe anymore, and that she has made friendships and is trying to get better than her solo, um, do it all herself kind of person.
I agree, and I like that we did get to see that she isn't just doing it all on her own anymore, and she was very welcome to having them on her ship with her. She wanted help. She didn't want to do all this on her own. She was like, you know what? She even said it's nice having people on the ship again.
Yeah.
So I liked that. We talked about some things that we didn't like about the movie. So I do want to ask you, what were some of your things that you did like about the movie?
Oh, my favorite scene by far was the Flurkins. I
Yeah.
laughed so hard when it's literally like a horror scene that they were playing just for kicks and giggles. It was
Yep.
hilarious. I loved it. Um, so that was one of my favorite things. And then also I thought the fight
Yeah.
like the choreography was amazing in this film. And you touched on it with their power entanglement. Um, but they really did a good job with the fights specifically. Like it's a cool concept, and they executed it really, really well.
Hmm.
Especially for it kind of depowered some of them, which is kind of needed for Carol to be a little depowered, so that she does have a struggle. She's too powerful to not have something conflicting her, or else she's just gonna reignite suns and blow up planets and everything. So I like that aspect of it. I thought that was a really good way to give our heroines a something to overcome, something that makes them work together to grow as a unit. And then also, I loved the little moments between Monica and Carol. I thought that showing that tension from, hey, you left me as a
Hmm.
child, and her still dealing with that, her still struggling with that, and then also getting some resolution. And then, like you said, Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan is great. She's hilarious. She's fun. She's lighthearted. When she looked out the window and said, "Old Captain, my Captain," I laughed out loud. I thought that was
Yep.
great. My wife rolls her eyes because she really didn't like Miss Marvel, but like I thought that was hilarious, and just a really good time. So I had a bunch of positives with it. I understand the negativity of it's not the greatest movie ever. We're not gonna get Infinity Wars. We're not gonna get end games every single time. But these movies do build our character understanding. It's just fun to go watch. It's fun to go to the movies and watch this film, and that's what I really liked.
And that's what I do want to preface this. Us saying the things we don't like about it. This movie was more good than bad for me by a lot. I really did enjoy the movie. You touched on the things. I thought the fight choreography was great. Love her as Miss Marvel. She does such a good job. Very good. I said it. Comedic relief was perfect for her. She was actually my wife's favorite character when watching the movie. She was cracking up at all the things she was saying and doing, and just being a fun kid. Because she is a kid. You do need to show that aspect of her. It would be unrealistic for her to just be this super serious, stone cold killer. That's just not how it should be. I kind of think that's one of the things I wish they would have done more with Spider-Man was Tom Holland be almost more of a fanboy of Iron Man than he was. Sure, he revered him. Sure, he respected him, and he was really cool, really happy to be near him and all those things. But she does a really good job of being like, holy cow! Like any of us would be at that age if we somehow had superpowers that age and we knew of this world, there's Iron Mans and things like that, we would be freaking out if we met Iron Man or if we met Captain Marvel and things like that. In this type of world, those are like our professional athletes that we like, oh my goodness, there's, so and so. So I love that they showed that aspect of her being like, holy cow, it's Captain Marvel. This is a person, I look up to. It's literally who I named myself after. So I thought that was really cool. Lots of great things. Talked about the Flurkin scene. I loved it. And I mentioned it before. I think Nick Fury, this is what he does. He finds ways that shouldn't work. And that was such a way that you don't think anything about that. I never saw that coming. I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was a really good plan. And just the music playing during it all, really, really great. So those are the things I really liked about it as well. Would you recommend someone to go see this movie in theaters? Or with the way we have streaming platforms today, would you recommend them just hold off because we know it's probably coming to Disney Plus maybe in a month or two just because of how bad it's doing in the box office? So I'd like to hear what you would recommend to people.
So it depends on what your constrictions are. If it's easy for you to go to the theater and you have time, yes, go watch it. You're going to have a blast. Is this one that like you need to drop everything and go to the theaters right now and watch? I wouldn't say so. But with what we have available to watch right now in theaters, I would prioritize this one over anything else. Obviously I did. I have obstacles of my own that I overcame just so I could go watch this because I'm, as we know, a Marvel junkie. So, but yes, highly recommend to go. I think I gave it about a 7.5 out of 10. Which on my rating scales means I would really want to watch this again and would. So I will watch it again when it comes to Disney Plus. Um, but yeah, really fun
So
film.
I'm gonna say my rating was a 7 out of 10. I thought it was good. I really, and again, I'm going to say something that's going to sound like I didn't like the movie, but I really, really did enjoy the movie. Me personally, if you don't have time and you really don't know, this is not a movie, like he said, you do not need to drop everything and go see. I would almost recommend just waiting. I don't think there was anything that you really, really needed to see in this movie. And to be honest with you, if something gets spoiled in this movie, I don't think it's such a spoiler that you're going to be upset that it got spoiled because nothing crazy happened in this movie. So, me personally, I would just say hold off. It's probably going to be on Disney Plus in a month just because of how poor it's doing, which I don't think is deserved. I think it does deserve to be doing a lot better than it is. And I know I sound like a big hypocrite this episode with all the kind of things I'm saying back and forth, but I do think this is one I would probably just recommend waiting for. We do the podcast. We love Marvel, so we're going to find ways to go see this stuff all the time. And I hope that's one way that we are helping you guys that do listen to us. Maybe some advice on some things like that we can give you guys. I don't think this is one you have to go see. Like I said, I would just wait, just save the money.
Now,
But
I will say it won't be on Disney Plus in a month. It will every time a movie has underperformed for Disney, they wait significantly longer to put it on Disney Plus.
I guess that's a good point to make because I guess I guess Ant-Man and the Wasp did take a little while
Yeah, it took like
to get to it.
six. It took like I think it was four or 5 months they waited to put that on Disney Plus.
Where I guess Guardians was what, 3 maybe? Was it right
Two
around 3
months.
months? 2
Two
months. Okay,
months.
so I mean, if you like I said though, even then, even if they do wait 6 months, there's not anything else coming out in the meantime that you're going to be missing. I would probably still just recommend waiting. Just personally, I love the movie. I think it was really good. If you do have time and you do want to go see it, I definitely would go see it. But I don't think it's something like he said that you need to drop everything and go watch. But that's just me personally. I'm a big moviegoer. I love going to the movies. I don't think there's a better way to watch something. So if I have the opportunity to watch something in a theater, I'm always going to take it. But moving
Yeah.
on from the Marvels, I think it's time to start talking about some Loki. Loki season 2 is wrapped up the day of the Marvels early premiering. What did you think about the Loki season 2 finale?
Ooh, man. The Loki season 2 finale was, man, even like as you think about it more and more, it gets better. Um, the culmination of Loki's entire story arc, and it is so good. It is so well done. It is wonderfully paced, and honestly, like, it's not super predictable. Like, you kind of think you know where it's gonna go when, like, I kind of thought I knew where this was gonna go coming into the to watch it, and it really didn't go where I thought it was gonna go. Um, and it was better. It was better than what I thought
Mm-hmm.
would happen. There was some things, just that I wish that they would have shown in it, but I'm not upset about it. I'm not upset that I didn't get to see certain things. Um, But what they did with the character of Loki was absolutely beautiful. And I have here in my show notes, I said, there are so many Easter eggs, so many callback moments that if you're not like in tune with the show, you didn't rewatch the show, that you don't just super pick up on. But man, what an ending with Loki being the absolute god of time, sitting on a throne created by him, managing the Idrisil in and of itself, man, how awesome.
I thought, like you said, absolutely fantastic. My favorite thing about, I think, the finale, which impressed me so much, Marvel really flexed their writing skills in this
Mm,
episode because there wasn't really any action scenes the entire episode. I know we had theorized that maybe we were going to get to start to see some of this war break out and we were going to get to start to see some fights going down. That didn't happen. This was just
nothing.
a really, really extremely well written episode. And I really got to say, that is probably what made it so good because you're captivated the entire time. The things they were doing with Loki, time slipping and how many times you can tell he's gone over this thing over and over again trying to learn stuff. You even see the one little blip prop up on the screen where he asks OB, "Hey, how long would it take me to learn everything that you know?" And then he says, "Centuries." Well, guess what? Centuries later, and Loki's learned everything OB knows, if not even more at this point, because of his ability to time slip and all those things. The writing was fantastic. I loved, 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 getting into some of the scenes that we really liked. The scene with Loki and He Who Remains was one of the most well-written Marvel scenes I think ever. And I think it really speaks to the acting of both those characters. They did phenomenal. The acting was on point, but the writing was like, holy cow. I literally couldn't take my eyes off the screen during that scene.
Ah, and really getting to show the Jonathan Majors acting chops once again to in his better role as He Who Remains. He
Yeah.
does He Who Remains. I want to say better, but he is just a better character than Victor Timely.
Yeah.
And then to even like make fun of him and show like, hey, have you
Yep,
met
the stutter.
Victor Timer yet? Like, have you met Victor yet? Like it was so good, and to see them talk, and then then also like the display of power between the two of them. You know, First off, Kang didn't use the TemPad every time he used time to stop. Um, like when he stopped
Sylvie.
Sylvie, and then made her
Yeah.
go away, and then Loki learning to control the time around him as well to stop time, even in and of that moment.
Yeah.
Man, what makes you think this is the first time we had this conversation? How
Yep.
many times he has gone through that? And what I really loved about that scene is like my wife does not like Sylvie, and I didn't like Sylvie in the
I don't
second
either.
season either. She was she was pretty annoying, but she's
Yep.
like, just kill her, like but like Loki is refusing to kill her. Like he is he is so fond of her. He has spent so much time with her. He spent centuries with her at this point,
Hmm.
which is funny. You think about it, it's been like 2 weeks of content time wise, and then this last episode spans for centuries that
Yeah.
he has been with them, and Loki and Mobius and Sylvie and Obi and Casey and B-15. So he spent centuries trying to save them, and he's not going to about to turn on Sylvie and kill her. Which I don't know if he could have won that fight even if he was fully going full tilt as she continued to win, and he wasn't able to subdue her. But man, what like you said, what a good scene there in the throne room and the Citadel at the end of time. Really one of the highlights of the entire show.
I thought, and just like the way that whole, we talked about feeling like me personally, feeling like the Marvels fell short of pushing the story forward. That scene in particular, it pushed Marvel forward on a whole nother level, and it was unbelievable to watch Kang really flex how powerful he actually is because he's telling Loki, like, nope, can't do that. Nope, you can't do that. If you do this, this is going to happen. And no matter what, he was right. He was never
Yep.
wrong in any of his sayings. And, we'll get to it here in a second, talking about, how that ending, some of our theories, kind of what that ending is indicative of. It was true. There was not a single time where Loki was like, "Oh, I'm just going to keep." And Loki has unlimited attempts. You can't tell me there weren't unlimited amount of times that he tried to do something different, and what Kang said just came true, and he was like, "Shoot, can't do this. Let me slip back to this time again and restart." I think that is what finally gave Kang his okay. He is a villain. He is that powerful, because up to this point, I think we can both agree Kang hasn't really flexed any power. We've seen Ant-Man subdue him. We've seen Victor Timely, even though it's not really Kang, it's still a Kang variant. We finally saw what Kang really is and how scary of a character he can be, because when you're going up against someone that knows your every move without even knowing it, that's pretty powerful. And so I love that they really showed, all right, this is what Kang is, this is what he's capable of, and they finally gave us a villain to actually fear.
And we're gonna get to see the TVA again, which I'm
Yep.
excited because they are monitoring the Kangs. Um, now, I do want to talk a little bit about the Variety article that came out, specifically talking about what they were moving forward, and they did say that they thought about completely going away from Kang and scrapping Kang Dynasty and giving that to be a Doctor Doom timeline.
Hmm.
Um, but in that article, it said, Marvel's really screwed with the Loki, that there's not a path forward with that. And I that statement in and of itself, to me, completely and totally, like, debunks that entire Variety, because there's so much they could go forward with this. Yes, Kang is established as an incredible threat. We know that they're monitoring his variants, but I mean, you could leave the Kang story here and say Loki won and the TVA is controlling them, and move forward and pivot to another story if they need to. Like,
Oh, 100%.
so, like, that one statement in that entire article completely and totally ruined the entire credibility of that article. And everything else that was in it was actually known, like, has been already debunked for the most part. There was some truth, but it was really just a slander piece for Marvel, which I think they're just tired of the reign of Marvel. But
I think that's why a lot of people hate on Marvel, honestly. I mean, and it's sad to say too, because I've seen people that are even fans of Marvel, fan of Phase One and all those things, and they're true fans. And it's just kind of crazy to see how they've just kind of switched, and I don't know why. I don't get the whole idea behind it. I think they're just wanting to live in that era. It's almost like they're wanting to gatekeep people, and
yeah,
I hate stuff like that. I'm the type of person, you know what? If I see something I like, I want everybody to go watch it, because guess what? That's how it gets better. That's how we get more of what we love, is when there's more people enjoying it, because at the end of the day, they have to make money. If this thing falls flat on its face and doesn't make any more Marvel, we're getting hurt by not telling more people to go see these things and go watch them and enjoy them. So I've really been shocked. We talk about, people hating the reign of Marvel. I think it's true. And it's really just crazy that people have kind of switched up for no reason, whether that be they don't want people to enjoy it like they did, or they think what they got to watch back when they did things was just better and superior to what we're getting now. I love it all. I think it's
yeah.
all great. Talking about how Loki moves stuff forward, this one did an amazing job. And you talked a little bit about them kind of pivoting away from Kang. I agree. They totally gave themselves an out if they need it. If they really do, I know the trials with all Jonathan Majors and all those things aren't fully wrapped. We're still waiting to hear some things. However, if he is truly free and clear and all that stuff, I would be so disappointed if we
Same.
don't get what it seemed like they're setting up with Kang.
I
Because
really want
man,
to
oh
see it.
man, like just going, skipping to the end of the episode, we know we can go ahead and assume he showed up for Ravonna at the end of
Yep.
time after she got pruned. What did Kang tell Loki? He said, if you sit on this throne, the multiversal war starts.
Yes.
It's starting. And that is honestly one of the most exciting things I have ever seen in Marvel, is the fact that this multiversal war is really going to be insane.
Yeah, and it is going to be absolutely crazy. If they get the proper writers and the proper seats, this will be the best This will be better than Endgame.
Yep.
And you can mark my words, but and if it's not, then I'll just say, hey, I did say if they get the proper writers, and I'll blame the writers. But
You got to give yourself an out, just like they did.
oh yeah, absolutely. But I believe that Kang did not get defeated in Ant-Man, and I believe that Kang is actually who's coming to Ravonna with
Okay.
with his chair, because he got sucked into his own temporal engine. He didn't get killed. He got sucked into a time machine.
Mhm.
Where's he go? The end of time. Like, I just feel like that's actually pretty logical next step to say. So I think he's coming back with a vengeance. And everyone can say, he got beat by ants. Well, he didn't have time. He did not have the power of time. And he still killed, like, he still took over that universe without his best weapon of time. And
And
he still wrecked a bunch of people, and it took a millennia of ants evolving to a ridiculous level to conquer him. So I'm expecting that Kang to come with a vengeance with Ravonna, and we're about to see some major L's taken by our heroes.
yeah, and you mentioned it. I'm so sick of hearing people say, "Oh, Kang, he's losing. He's always losing." What is Thanos without his gauntlet? Yeah, he's strong, but I mean that's kind of what his thing is. If you take away a villain's most, what is Iron Man without his suit? You get what I'm saying? Like, they're not going to be this just force of nature if they don't have their most powerful tool, right? So that's
Yeah,
what I'm so sick of seeing. Oh, Kang is weak. If anything, I think we just saw how strong he is without, you know, even in Loki,
he
he
wasn't even
wasn't
trying to
using.
win.
No, he wasn't fighting Loki. He was just outsmarting him, and he's so smart that that's his power, right? So I'm excited for that. I love some of the things that they could do with this. I do like the idea of that being the Kang from Ant-Man that's going to see Ravonna. I hadn't thought of that, but that makes a lot of sense. It's a really good theory. I'll be interested to see how Ravonna reacts to that, because, in my opinion, I could see an arc with Ravonna where she betrays Kang. She could say, "Hey, you know what? Sure, you came back for me. I'm going to help you." I could see her getting a little bit of a redemption arc with Mobius, and her and Mobius kind of finally getting to get back to where they were as like best friends and all those things, being teammates, with her kind of saying, "You know what, I set up all this stuff to get Kang to fail." I think that'd be a really cool storyline for her. But man, there's a lot of cool things. I got to go ahead and say I did kind of predict something a little bit right with that temporal loom. I
Yeah,
knew that was, there was no way that I said it was a failsafe, and they used that exact word. So I was like, I
yep,
knew I got something right.
yeah, you
Um,
definitely did. You called that one.
yes, so I thought that was funny. Um, and I was happy that that was the case too, because Kang does not. It should not be that is what's. I like that Kang was actually what was powerful and all that stuff. So that was
Yeah.
cool. Um, but yeah, wow, just a great episode. Um, there's so
I
much
got a
stuff.
question for you about it though.
Yeah.
When the how awesome was it to see the visualization of the multiverse into a tree for that?
Oh,
Like, and the callback to Norse mythology with Yggdrasil from Thor 1,
yep.
um, where he's talking about the tree, the world tree that encompasses all the realms, and now he was speaking about Loki in that moment. How awesome is that?
Oh, it's so cool, man. Talking about just right before that scene, I loved finally seeing Loki suit back up. Man,
Oh
him walking
man,
out to the temporal loom and all that stuff, dude. We finally see his horns. I was like, this is it. So good. Marvel is really, like I said, they flexed some writing skills with this whole thing. And even talking back, I don't know if you've seen. You might have been the one that sent it to me. Iron Man saying, "You'll never sit on the throne." You
yep,
know you'll. And Loki is on the throne now. So I love, they really, I don't even know if they were meaning for something like that to happen when they wrote Avengers. Maybe they had this stuff written out and planned. I'm
I
sure they
doubt
did to
it.
an extent, but
I
yeah,
doubt that.
I can't see them having, gone this far ahead with all the things that have happened and all the things that have come up. Really, really cool to see that. I loved
Well,
it.
and also his horns were like that kintsugi style with the gold inlay,
Yep.
and how symbolic of is it to Loki that Loki's been broken and he's lost so many times, but every time he's been put back together, he becomes more valuable, becomes better, and now he is literally the most powerful, best hero we have from someone who was just straight villain trying to just manipulate, deceive, and rule to someone who is sacrificially giving up his ability to live so that he can sit on a throne so that his friends can have an opportunity at free will.
Well, it's so crazy. Lokis are destined to lose, right? Well, this
Yep,
Loki won,
he
but what
won
did it cost? What did it cost him? It cost him the
everything.
one thing he wanted when he finally found out he didn't want to be alone anymore, and now he's essentially alone for ever. Really, I mean, I don't
Until
think.
he has to
Obviously,
fight
I think
King.
yes, I think we're going to see Loki again. But really, if you Marvel fell apart right now, he's alone forever, right?
Yep.
So really, really powerful stuff there. And I think Marvel is really hitting a stride that is super exciting. Um, this multiversal war stuff, and dude, it could be really special. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it now. You mentioned, this could be bigger than Endgame, and we talked about it on a recent episode. Will Secret Wars or Kang Dynasty, will either of those be able to reach the level at the box office of Infinity War and Endgame? If what we are thinking and all the things it sounds like they're doing come true, I'm gonna change my answer there, and I'm gonna say that those have very much high potential at this point in time to actually outdo those movies at the box office. I know it's gonna take a lot, but I know there's a lot of people that like to play on nostalgia, and it really seems like they're about to start playing with some nostalgia stuff. And I think it really could be that big of a hit for Marvel.
So I don't think it's going to have. I still stand by my numbers, saying no. It doesn't have a chance to beat it because it's too popular now to hate Marvel, and regardless of the nostalgia, I think the story is growing. The buy-in level for this multiverse is going to be a very high price to pay,
Yeah.
like to watch and understand everything. And I think they'll make it enjoyable in and of itself. Like I don't think you're going to have to watch everything to enjoy it, but to enjoy it to the level of Endgame, what was that? 20
Oh,
movies that
years.
you had to
Yeah,
watch.
years upon story
But
building.
but it was doable. You could do it in like 2 months. You could watch the entire MCU up to the end game. And now you're gonna be like, by the time this movie drops, it's going to be a 4 month journey to watch everything. If you don't take off work. So I just personally I don't think it's gonna reach that levels because the buy-in is daunting for most. And even the recommendations are now falling on flat ears for like, hey, should I watch it? Should I not? Like, there's just no FOMO anymore. So I don't think we're going to reach it, even though I think it'll be better.
I think I can agree with a lot of that, and a lot of that's due to just shows, right? I mean, movies are a lot easier to watch in a day than a whole show is because a show is, I mean, how many? We could probably say right around 6 hours of Loki you got to watch, right? That's almost
Yeah,
3 movies.
that,
So I
that's
can
more.
agree with that
It's
part.
more
The
than six
buy-in is
hours.
going to be, yeah, the buy-in's going to be huge. But I do feel like I think Deadpool 3, we said it before, Deadpool 3 will be a big indicator. That's going to be a big movie. Um, No Way Home is another indicator I think we can look at as far as how big is Endgame or how big is Secret Wars. No Way Home did huge at the box office,
Big
and
numbers.
yeah, so and that movie obviously it's very early in this multiversal saga, so you didn't have to have watched as much to understand it. But I know there was a lot of people that went just to see Tobey Maguire again, and things like that, and I think we're going to see a lot of that with Deadpool 2 or with Deadpool 3, but Deadpool also with Hugh Jackman. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting to see
I'm just
what.
curious what fan base is out there for Hugh Jackman that's not watching the MCU. That's kind of what I'm curious about. The nostalgia they're pulling on for these movies, I don't feel like is much different than the fans they're normally pulling anyway.
I will say I feel like it's probably, in my personal opinion, I would say it's more than you'd think. I think
Okay.
it goes back to that whole, a lot of people hating on the MCU because of its reign for so long and they miss their characters. I think a lot of people have probably quit watching since we've lost the Robert Downey Jr.'s. We don't have Chris Evans anymore. We really don't have any of the core Avengers at all in big time stuff right now, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people were like, you know what? If those characters that I've been watching for years are gone, I'm not going to keep watching. And I think with them, what will get them back is, oh, my character, my guy is back. Hugh Jackman's back, right? Tobey Maguire's back. Robert Downey Jr. could be back. Chris Evans, so on. I think that will be astronomical. I think a lot of people have quit watching for that reason.
Okay. That makes
But that's
sense.
my personal opinion. I could be real wrong, but I just feel like there's a lot of people that say that stuff like, "Oh, we've been watching these characters for this long and now they're just gone."
Yeah.
I see that a lot. Closing up with the Loki talk a little bit, what would you rate Loki on a scale of 1 to 10 as a whole show, not just the finale, as a whole show?
As a whole show, I'm gonna give it a I'm gonna give it a I'm gonna give it a 10.
Yeah.
And so just because of what I gave the first season a 9, because I felt like there was some moments in it that was a little lingering, and I didn't see like the cliffhanger. The cliffhanger always gives it the potential to fail. But I give it a 10. Loki is a perfect project for me. We've raved about it every time we talked about it. It is one that I will watch several times. It is completely and totally standalone in a show in and of itself from the point it picks up. Now, because I think someone who hasn't watched any of the Marvels, any of the MCU, can pick this show up, can understand that he's a man out of time, and enjoy the mess out of the show. I think it's just wonderful.
I'm going to agree with you. 10 out of 10 for me as well. And I'm one of those persons, I don't think 10s almost should ever be given out, just because how often is a project really perfect? And we can sit here and we could, if we really wanted to, I'm sure we could find some things that we didn't like or we could nitpick out of Loki. But the more I think about it, I really have a hard time finding things to even nitpick with the show because it was that good. The acting was phenomenal. The writing was good. The story was clear, which is a big thing that people have complained about with this whole multiversal stuff, is it's too confusing. I don't think Loki was too confusing. My wife understood it, and she likes Marvel stuff, but she's not to our level of, reading about it, keeping up with stuff. So when I use her a lot of time to understand how is the average viewer, how is the normal traditional viewer understanding this, she understood every bit of it and absolutely loved it. So when I can see her really understanding something, especially when it can be as confusing as the multiversal stuff, that's when I'm like, okay, the writers really did a good job of figuring out how to make this clear, which I thought they did a phenomenal job of. I thought the VFXs, the graphics, all that stuff were amazing. Absolutely phenomenal. Maybe some of the best we've ever seen. We've raved about the one scene in the record shop with Sylvie a couple of times now. Absolutely fantastic. Just stuff like that. I think Marvel really, like we said, they flex their writing and they flex what they're capable of as far as, how things can look, with the story they can tell. And it's things only Marvel can do, right? Because not everyone can make a superhero story about some of these characters that have been around for a long time, right? I mean, Marvel is not just something that's come up in the last 20 years. I mean, it's been around since I don't even know when, but a long time, right? So
yeah, very long
they're
time.
they're a very special thing, and for them to still be able to do what they're doing at this day and age, very impressive. And I think Loki was just a testament to how good of a story they can tell even after all these years.
I'm sad it's over, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've now we're probably going to skip a little bit on it, but I didn't even watch Invincible on Thursday just because of this finale, and I'm sad that as excited as I am to know that I'm not going to have to wait till the next day to watch Invincible, because usually I try not to stay up that late with that's both of them came out at 9, I think. So
Yeah.
so by the time you get to watch both of them, it's like 11 o'clock, and I'm like, oh man, I got to get to work in the morning. But I'm almost sad that I would rather still have that predicament and still have Loki because of how much I enjoyed it. Because man, this one's gonna hurt a little bit, not having that Thursday to look forward to with, oh man, what is Loki gonna do this time? Um, Man, it was good. I really just was sitting here talking about it. By far the best Marvel show. I think that's been a lot of people's opinions, and I know
Yeah,
it's mine. I'm sure it's yours.
for sure. Number one. It was number one before this season, and I think it just became unpassable.
Now, I know a lot of people have been asking the writers and even Tom Hiddleston, do you think we'll get another season of Loki? Most everyone I've seen has said no. They looked at this as a two-part story. Season 2 was the second part of the story. What do you think that is? Do you think we get a season 3? I know most people are saying no. Even the writers are saying, we wrote it as a two-part story. Do you think there is a season 3, or do you think we just see a
No.
continuation of Loki's story in other projects?
I'm not even sure we see a continuation of his story. I think Tom Hiddleston pretty much said he wrapped the character up pretty well.
Yeah.
I hope we see him versus Kang in Secret Wars. I hope that is something that we see, but I'm not positive that we even get to see him again, and that's sad. But man, he had the best character arc in the Marvel cinematic universe. From pure evil to complete sacrificial hero. Pretty awesome. But I don't think we see him again.
I would be so disappointed if we don't get to see him face off against Kang, because at this point in time, I feel like he's the only one that can and has a real chance of putting up a fight, because he knows Kang now. He has studied Kang. And I feel like the only way you can beat someone like Kang is if you know them, if you've studied them. So I really, really hope that we get to see that continuation of him in some sort of way. I do think it'll be a while. I don't think it will be till something like a Secret Wars. So maybe by Tom saying that, maybe that's, I'm taking a couple years off from this role. I'm sure, we see a lot of times with actors, they do want to get away from the thing they've been doing. I've heard a lot of the Stranger Things cast saying, hey, we love Stranger Things, but, it's been our whole life. We're ready to start doing some other things. We see that with Robert Downey Jr. He's even said, he was worried about if he was going to be able to act in other things because of how much Iron Man had really taken up of his life and how much he devoted to that character. So I think Tom's probably in that same boat, just wanting a little bit of a break. Hope we get to see him in Secret Wars. But if this is the end of Loki, what a phenomenal character. What a phenomenal story. Now, I do want to ask you, I'm sure you've got some theories running in your head. What is your big theory right now? Where do you think Marvel goes from this? I know you talked a little bit about thinking the Kang from Ant-Man is who comes to get Ravonna, and he's kind of the one that really starts to wreak some havoc on this multiverse. Do you have any other theories that you're interested about, or is that your big one you're really pushing with right now?
So they're gonna go incursions. I know we're gonna see a lot of the multiverse from Deadpool 3. And Deadpool 3 is going to talk about, I believe, an incursion that happened because of Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Multiverse of Madness. I believe that's what they've said in potentials, how they bring them in. But I feel like we're gonna see absolute chaos throughout the multiverse, even because it exists. And then we're going to see the multiversal war. I don't know when we're going to see that. We're not going to see it in Brave New World with Captain America, which is undergoing a complete and total story rewrite and just got delayed. We're not going to see it in the Thunderbolts.
No.
And I'm trying to even think of their upcoming release dates. There's no big movie. We talked about overall movies that come out, but there's nothing massive that's going to come. Fantastic Four will push the story forward, but that's the only. So Deadpool 3 and Fantastic Four are the only two movies that actually have the potential to push this forward. Blade's not going to push it forward, Thunderbolts isn't going to push it forward, and Captain America isn't going to push it forward. So and that's all they've said before the Kang Dynasty. I think we're going to get a massive pushback in time. And we're going to get some other projects slipped in there that are going to change the storyline. They already push back every movie except for Deadpool. to 2025, and
Yeah.
that's the only movie we're getting next year. So I just think they're going through a little bit of creative. I think they're realizing how hard it is to do the multiverse right, and so they're going to take a little bit more time and get the story right, give it the build up it deserves, and then insert some more stories that will lead up to the Kang Dynasty.
I 100% agree. I think they are taking this opportunity to cross their T's and dot their I's because I think before they were really just kind of going with the flow and seeing
Hmm.
how fans were reacting to what they were saying about the multiverse. And the more fans were getting disgruntled and saying this just doesn't make any sense, they're like, all right, we have to make a way for this to make perfect sense for the average viewer. And I think that's a big reason why we are seeing so many things delayed. As of right now, you might be able to correct me. We have Deadpool 3 next year. We have Echo, I believe, early next year. Is there any other things slated even for next year? I know a lot of the
Um,
shows got delayed, but I think
Agatha
there's
Harkness and the
okay,
Coven of Chaos, or
okay,
Darkhold Diaries, or whatever it is at this
whatever
point.
they decide on.
They've had four different names for it. A House of Harkness maybe is what they settled on.
Okay,
Who knows?
so
But that's coming out, and then apparently there's a Witches Road, a
I
Halloween
think okay,
special that they're supposed
yeah,
to put out.
I've heard that. But
Which
other than that, I guess that's about it, right?
that's it. That's released. We're supposed to get What If in December, and
Yeah.
then also what is X-Men '97 is supposed to come
Oh,
out next
yep,
year.
yep. So
So
I think the only one of those that really, besides Deadpool 3, that could push this story forward. We know Echo's not because it's a spotlight series. This is going to be I think, very basic show. I think this is going to be targeted at those people that don't watch Marvel at all and just going to try to be one of those things that grabs them in. I think that's a
yeah,
big
bring
reason
them
why they did
back.
the TV. Yeah, I think it's a big reason why they did the TVMA thing is to get people like, oh, this could be interesting. This is more of an adult thing. I think they want to really target those adult audiences more than the people like us that have been watching our entire lives, just about.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a way for them to do that. The only other thing I think that could push the story forward besides Deadpool is the Agatha show, and I don't know that that one will. And the only reason I could see that one maybe a little bit is just because of the Scarlet Witch, ways those are connected, just because they have fought each other now. That's the only way I could see that one maybe doing it, because we know the Scarlet Witch is going to have a big, impact on the multiverse just because of what she's done. So that's the only one I could really see. But I think next year is going to be interesting to see what we even get, because right now
Reset
it's
year.
looking kind of bare.
Yeah, I feel like it's a reset year. I think I think Quantum Mania is a wake up. The Marvels, the way it's performing, is going to be the okay, get up and do something. So they're already pushing everything back. They're going to restructure Brave New World, and they're going to get it back on track with releasing only what they need to, eh, good quality shows, or something that pushes the entirety forward that's also good. So I feel like that's where we're at. Marvel is taking next year to make sure everything is correct, and then they're not gonna push out quantity anymore because they realize that they're actually lose money when they do that.
Hmm. Yeah, not even for the simple fact it just doesn't give people a chance to watch everything, because there's only
Yeah,
so many hours in a day. People have work weeks that it's everyone lives a busy life. So if there's just something coming out constantly, you're naturally not going to make the money, just because not as many people have the time to watch everything.
and
I do
we
think,
like
like,
other things.
yeah, yeah, it's not like we only live and breathe Marvel. That's a great point. Like, we're both big Star Wars fans. Star Wars always has stuff coming out too. I mean, we're loving Invincible. Stranger Things is. I think that's gonna come out a lot sooner than people are expecting. To be honest with you,
Okay.
um, I know they're kind of just starting to start filming, but the writing is pretty much done for the show. And
Yeah, actually, David Harbour is actually not allowed to record the Thunderbolts
yeah,
because he's got to go record Stranger Things.
yeah. So that's going to be here soon. So just talking about other stuff we like. That makes a perfect point. Is that we don't have time to watch everything, and when there's so much stuff to go and watch, you're not going to ever make the money. I do think next year is going to be a very profitable year for Marvel. Just, I know it's very few things they're releasing. I think it will be a good thing for them, though, as a company,
Yeah.
to realize, okay, we're getting back on track. I'm so sick of seeing all this stuff's doing terrible at the box office. Marvel's going to go bankrupt. That's just not going to happen. But this will be at least that wake up call for all these companies reporting on things to be like, all right, Marvel's still pretty strong. So I'm excited for that. But do you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Whether that be the Marvels, whether that be
I,
Loki, whether that be something you're excited about that's coming, not Marvel related. I know this was a very Marvel heavy podcast, but very Marvel heavy week. So
I do have a friend that was shocked when I said that Star Wars was second in my franchises that I liked after Marvel, because he thought I was DC was next. And I will say I'm very excited for the James Gunn DC projects to start getting kicked off. That's just something else that, like we said, hey, there's a lot of stuff coming. I'm really excited for that to start showing up. And he gave a teaser that his Superman script is done, that they're going to start.
Yep.
They're going to start doing that film. So I'm really excited for that to take off and see how well that does, or if he can save the DC, because there's a bunch of DC fans out there that really want DC to get it was the premier superhero genre for a long time, until Marvel took over the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I know they're excited for that. So I am excited for that next year. But yeah, we're gonna see where we go from this, man. A crazy push, but we're not gonna have this packed of content for a long time. I'd say this is probably the last weekend we have just an overabundance of things to watch that are releasing all at the same time.
100%. And I think we couldn't have picked a more perfect time to really start learning how to podcast.
Yeah.
Because we just have had so much stuff to talk about. But it's probably going to be good for us to really try to flex, our brain muscles a little bit. All right, how are we gonna fit an hour into this week that basically just has maybe just Invincible, right?
Or
so
maybe
you guys
nothing.
have a lot of things. Yeah, maybe. I mean, Invincible is only going to be here for so long. There's definitely going to be a couple weeks where we've got to figure out some stuff. But I think that's going to be fun. I think we have some cool things planned. Both of us are big gamers, so I think that's something you guys could look forward to seeing in the future. We do like other stuff, like you said. A lot of things have been Marvel and Star Wars, but that just goes with the timing of when we created this podcast. But yeah, I've had a great time this episode. Lots of fun stuff. We will get back on track next week with Invincible. I will catch back up. I love how I told everybody I was going to catch up last episode. I caught all the way back up, and now I'm behind already again. So
now you're off.
Now I'm off again.
You ruined it.
We'll get. If you've been looking forward to the Invincible talk, it's coming next week. But other than that, if you don't have anything else to say for this episode, Zane.
Nah, we're good. Close this out, man.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, this was a fun Marvel Madness episode. I'm sure there's going to be more things that will come out in the future that we'll be talking about in the next few episodes. Not as any questions this episode, just because we really wanted to kind of get back on track with our hour mark, because we have been giving you guys little mini movies to listen to. So hopefully this one's a little bit more contained and more, manageable to watch. However, we do love doing them. So if you guys do it, enjoy them. Make sure to rate us. If you guys ever have any questions or anything like that, don't be afraid. I know our ways of reaching us, all our socials are in the description. Zane does a good job of making sure everything is there. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask a question. And if it's something we've never talked about, still feel free to ask it, because there's a very good chance that we still enjoy whatever it is you might be asking, or maybe it's something we want to learn more about and we might start watching. So like I said, any questions are always open. But thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of The Weekly Fix, and we will see you in the next one.